And this election is going to be a very, very clear choice for all of us in New Hampshire. Whether or not we're going to go back to the failed economic policies of the past, or whether we're going to go forward, revitalize the middle class, and rebuild a working economy for the 21st century on a firm foundation. Now, all our Republican opponents, up and down the ticket in New Hampshire, want New Hampshire to take a U-turn back into the ditch that the Republicans drove us into. And that's because Republicans run for office saying government doesn't work, they get elected, and they prove it. They borrowed and spent us into a $1.3 trillion black hole with reckless fiscal policies and a cowboy foreign policy that nearly drove us into a second depression. I mean, that's why I think politics is a lot like driving a car. You want to go back, you put it in R. You want to go forward, you put it in D. Because this week down in Washington, there's a debate about regulating the Wall Street banks who gambled away your college savings, gambled away your retirement funds, your 401ks, gambled with our economy, and now we know they sold America short and laughed all the way to the bank. So the Republicans tried to block the debate. That's because GOP now stands for the Grandstanding Obstructionist Party. They have tried to block progress on every front and blame Democrats for it. They tried it on health care, it didn't work. They're trying it on regulatory reform, it won't work, because we know where we stand. Where we stand is simple. We are here as Democrats to say to Wall Street, never again, not on our watch. Knows that we've got to get real rules of the road on Wall Street, apparently, except the folks I'm running against here in New Hampshire. Ovid LaMontagne, that we don't need fiscal regulatory reform. Bill Binney, well, Mr. Binney says that our real problem is we've been vilifying Wall Street. I think they've done a pretty good job at vilifying themselves. The sounds of silence. And I'm not talking about Simon and Garfunkel. I'm talking about what my buddy Steve Gordon says, the hope of the party of note, who is just playing rope-a-dope on jobs, on the economy, on Wall Street reform. I think New Hampshire deserves a United States Senator, another United States Senator who stands up for the middle class, stands up for working people, stands up for small business, and stands up against the corporate special interests that are trying to take our country by the throat back into the ditch. That's what New Hampshire needs. That's what New Hampshire deserves. A stand-up senator. Choices are going to be very clear. It takes me back to the time when David Souter hired me. What he taught me about in his Attorney General's office was independence and integrity. Independence and integrity, taking on the tough cases, not just the easy cases. That's why, as a special prosecutor on what was then the biggest white-collar crime case that New Hampshire had seen, it meant sending white-collar criminals to jail for their crimes. I know something about putting financial con artists where they belong. I know something about doing what's right. That's why I stood up. That's why I stood up to Wall Street on the bailiff. It's why I stood up to cut wasteful pork spending. It's why I stood up to the corporate special interests and filed the Granny D constitutional amendment to deal with the United Citizens case so our democracy is not drowned out by corporate special interest money. And that's why I'm asking the people of this state, with your help, to send me to the United States Senate to do what's right, not what's easy. Let's face it, times are tough. Talk is cheap. New Hampshire Hampshire deserves a senator with a backbone to deliver. Now, I'm not going to do this alone. You were with me in 2004, 2006, 2008. We were together then, and we are together now. Let's face it, right now Democrats are behind in the polls. I'm behind in the polls. And I know how loud the forces of cynicism, bigotry, dishonesty, and hate can sound. And we know about polls in New Hampshire. It's a long way between here and November. And I am completely confident about the results for Democrats from the top of the ticket to the bottom of the ticket, because the people of New Hampshire are going to see the choices before them, and we have a secret weapon. It's the people here in this room. I know you understand how important this election is for all of us. I have the words of Billy Shaheen ringing in my ears. He says, "Don't worry, just work." It's why I'm an optimist. I'm a realistic optimist. And I want to leave you with this. Give 'em hell, Harry Truman said, and he said it best. This country wasn't built on fear. It was built on courage, imagination, and the determination to get the job done. Well, Democrats, it's time to stand tough. We won't be bullied. We won't back down. We haven't come this far to be turned around. I know you have the courage and the imagination and the determination to get the job done. And together, when November comes, in the only poll that counts, we know what the results are going to be. Democrats in New Hampshire are going to win up and down the ticket because we're fighting for the right things.